Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Middlesex Select Board meeting for Tuesday, August 18th at 5 p.m. Welcome to our guests in the audience and on Zoom, and to Orca. And it looks like we have a full board for the first time in a while. So welcome, board members. I hope you all had a satisfactory vacation, Paul and Larry. Yeah, good. Okay, so we're going to approve the minutes of which probably July 31st minutes. The July 31st special emergency meeting. That was the meeting that remember we met to do that vote. Do you have that one for August 31st? Okay, good. Yeah, that was the one where I'm sorry, July 31st, right. This was about approving the November 3rd, 2026 general election ballots to all active registered voters with the justice of the peace candidates to appear on the ballot. Remember how we had to meet on that?
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, so Zara moves that motion. Is our second?
Second.
Larry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so if we want to pass that around to sign that. The August 4th minutes for signature. August 4th was our regular select board meeting. And is there a motion to approve? That was, with Mary Nealon was visiting. You were not here, Paul,
Correct.
and Larry, you were not here either.
I'll make the motion to approve those minutes.
Okay, and is there a second?
I wrote the minutes.
Okay, so
Can you
I'll
second?
second them. And so all those in favor of the minutes for August 4th, say aye. Aye. Okay, so 3 ayes and 2 abstains. Okay, so Zara, if you want to sign those. Then I also brought with me, because I don't think actually Bridget got copies of them, because Bridget and the town clerk and treasurer were taken off the select board email. So just so everybody knows, if you're emailing something and it's to selectboard@middlesexvermont.org, and you also want the treasurer and town clerk, you need to put in clerk at Middlesex, Vermont, and treasurer for them to get it as well. So I did print out for us the minutes for the couple of special meetings that we had related to hiring the town administrator. And so that was for let's see on the agenda, what does it say? Approving the special select board meeting of August 10th. And at that meeting,
We had the hiring committee in.
yeah. August,
Was an executive session, so.
yeah, August 10th had some minutes. It was the hiring committee as well as all of us. Except Paul wasn't really there because we had a problem on. Oh, no, you were there. You were there.
We had audio.
You were there. Yeah, so we were all there. So is there a motion to approve those minutes of Monday, August 10th?
I'll make the motion.
No second.
Okay, and Larry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So then we have the minutes of, which are really brief because it was basically a executive session to interview the final candidates. So so that was for Wednesday, August 12th. And Larry, you were only there for a little bit, so I would almost say you should just recuse yourself. Yeah.
I'd make the motion to
Okay.
approve those minutes.
So Zara moves, and is there a second? I'll second, Stacy wrote them. So all those in favor of these minutes for the special select board meeting to interview the candidates, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have to, you also have to sign this, and you have to sign. This is an extra of August 4th. Lift this up. Okay. Next is approving the agenda for August 18th. And and considering any amendments to the agenda, I do have an agenda amendment, which is to at the end of the meeting, before we move into the executive sessions that are already on here, I want to move into a possible executive session under section 1 VSA, section 313. And it would be, I think it would be, the appointment or, so this would be, number 3. So section 313(3), which is the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. And I'll just put the caveat that that open meeting isn't going to happen tonight. On the agenda down below, it says possible announcement of town administrator hiring. That isn't going to happen tonight, but it will happen in a public meeting. And this is an executive session just to bring the board together to discuss further this hiring. So is everyone okay with that? And is there any other amendment to the agenda?
I'd make a motion to move that amendment,
The agenda with the
the
amendment?
agenda with the amendment.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second
Okay, Kara, if you want that, that'd be great. All those in favor of the agenda with the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Alrighty then, let's get back to business. Okay, so we have Mark Harris here, with a couple of folks from the budget committee, to share some lessons learned, and opportunities for improvement in the annual budgeting process, action unlikely. So take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Liz. So we had a budget lessons learned meeting as our regularly scheduled July meeting. And it focused mostly on what the budget committee could do better in the budget process. As we all know, it was a challenging budget season, and it's probably right for us to step back and think about how we can improve the process. So one of the things that was brought up was a clearer delineation of roles and responsibilities between the budget committee and the select board. Now, it's pretty clear on the capital plan because basically since we created it, the budget committee sort of owns the capital plan. They update it. They put things on the budget for the next year for the select board to approve and input in the budget, et cetera. On the operating budget side, though, it's a little bit more fuzzy. It's sort of we work as a team and we end up with the final budget through however many meetings and revisions we have to do. So one thought would be, should the budget committee have more responsibility on the operating side of the budget? I mean, you could go the full gamut and say, hey, the budget committee can meet with the departments and start putting together the draft budget for next year and sort of relieve the select board of that. Now, of course, we're an advantage because we have a former treasurer on the budget committee. However, I think the process is fairly repeatable now in that if the treasurer gave us the template, we could fill in most of the blanks. So that's just something for the select board to consider. Take something off your plate, put it on ours. I think it's something we've discussed among ourselves. We're pretty comfortable with doing it. From the capital side, remember that the planning for that is kind of separate and it can happen early in the process than the operating part does. And so a lot of the feedback we got in our lessons learned meeting was, hey, can we draft the budget earlier in the year? Well, that's sort of challenging, right? Because July 1st is the start of our budget year. So if we move planning back toward the beginning of our budget year, we virtually have no actuals, right? So it may well be that the only advantage of doing that is figuring out what out of ordinary expenses we think we're going to have in the next budget. Like for this past year, we sort of had an idea we were going to hire a town administrator. We might not have known about the sand pit that early, I can't remember. But so we might not get everything, but we might get at least some things that are outside of the run of the mill. This is just running the town. On the capital side, it's more of an advantage because we'll be discussing at a September select board meeting, the multi-year sort of approach we're putting together the capital plan. So that'll give us an opportunity to do that ahead of time. So we will get some traction in publicizing and getting resident input on the budget before November, which I think was a very clear theme that people were clamoring for. Despite what we did in Front Porch Forum through several announcements, people still felt surprised by our budget. So, early public forums, we could do that. And I think we could plan on doing that later this year with the capital plan, because it's going to be different. And people will be able to weigh in on what's this going to cost you if we do this. Because again, we're hearing a lot of feedback. We talked about this in our meeting an hour ago, but we have an aging population in Middlesex. We have a lot of folks on fixed incomes who are saying, do I really want to pay for this if I'm not going to be around for it? So we have to sort of figure out the balance in terms of our town tax bill every year in terms of what we can add to it. So people talk about the budget structure, highlighting things that are changing versus things that are not. We could do that. That's getting into the minutia. I think it's more about what's changed. What are the biggies for the next budget year? And what do we think they're going to cost you? Because eventually that's what people want to know. And as we all know from the March 3rd meeting, we've started to talk in terms of this is how many cents it's going to mean on your town tax bill. And here's the formula you can take with your grand list value times the increase. And that's how much we think your tax bill is going to increase. Thankfully, this year, our town tax bill increased less than we told them it was going to. So we're going to continue to do that. The only other thing was monthly actuals. It would be nice if the budget committee was able to get monthly actuals as we move through the budget year. I think we've gotten them periodically, but I would say it's been hit or miss. So it would be nice if we could see some things that are trending and get some more exposure to operationally what's going on. But I'll open it now to any other folks on the committee if they have any other comments on our lessons learned.
I covered it.
Both of those things sound right to me.
Yeah. So I would argue and disagree with that.
I think also too, and this isn't necessarily the job of the budget committee, but there are two pieces to our property tax bill. There's the education piece, which we have no control over. And then there's the municipal piece, and really, focusing on the municipal piece, because if we say to someone, well, your taxes will go up, $50, that's $50 of your municipal budget, right? That's not they could go up hundreds of dollars on your educational budget. And I think it will behoove us, and I don't know that this is a budget committee, but someone needs to be able to, be a spokesperson and understand the implications of our townwide reappraisal and how that won't necessarily affect municipal taxes, but it will affect educational taxes in some way, and how, I don't know. But a lot of people are asking that question, right? Like, people are like, they all think, oh, my house is suddenly now 400,000 when it was 200,000. That doesn't mean that your taxes are going to double, right? But it does mean that there is some impact on that on the school side of things. And it also on our end of things, does that, we would want to communicate to the town, just because your house is now worth more doesn't mean we're suddenly going to see that as our, gold mine of opportunity to raise taxes because, your house is worth more. So
adding communication.
Yeah, communication
So
is a big piece.
I can say, I'll look at our budget committee members for a minute. We can certainly take that on. I had a one-on-one conversation with Shelley in April before the special May meeting. And we had a fairly detailed discussion about the reappraisal and what the impact would be on residents. And as I mentioned in our budget committee meeting at 4, I'd forgotten most of it, but one thing I do retain is that, you know, I simplistically used to think, okay, fine, if everybody gets reappraised and all of the property values go up double, basically the town tax rate is going to drop in half and people aren't going to really pay that much more money, right? However, there is this thing about average appraisal increase, et cetera, set by the state and things, and there's going to be a subset of homeowners who are going to be disproportionately impacted by the reappraisal, and that's sort of the word we need to get out and who those people might be. So they understand that well ahead of, I mean, the reappraisal is going to happen until another year, but still, it'd be nice to get out in front of people. And we talked about in our budget meeting, we need to sort of separate the reappraisal impact from, let's say, the capital spending impact that we want to talk about for the next budget year. Because really the reappraisal will happen in what fiscal year 29, January, if I'm correct.
No, I think
28, okay.
Is it, we were a year behind, so I'm trying to figure out, is it, originally it was gonna be done for FY 27?
The reappraisal.
The reappraisal,
But I think it's gonna be-
I think it got to 28
Right,
in my,
because it's a 2-year thing and we're
It's
in
a
our
two-
year 1.
that's what I think, but
Yeah,
I, that's what I mentioned in the meeting. I
Yeah.
think it's 28, but,
So we could have, I mean, we could have a double whammy with the reappraisal.
well, because you're gonna be doing the budget for 27, right?
No,
we're gonna do the
Because
we're in the budget.
At that one.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so we could have a double whammy there, so we'll have to be very sensitive to that.
Yeah, I mean, so next year is 27, right? The calendar year is 27. We will have a budget that will be fiscal year 28 on July 1st.
Right,
And that does take us into then.
because do we know when it's gonna be completed?
No, who was I talking to? I think it was, Shelley, the lister, at the primary. She said that, they're sending out postcards to people and they're doing it by, by area. And they are busy, they're starting to do appraisals of people's property, but I think they're waiting until they're completely done. And that's.
They have to wait till they're all done
Right.
before they update everything, but will it affect, I guess the question is, will it affect the grand list that's issued next April?
Yeah,
Or will it affect
probably
the
not.
grand list the
Yeah.
following year?
Okay,
I don't
That's the
think they'll be
question
done.
That needs to be
Yeah.
asked.
I don't think they'll
Yeah.
be done by April.
You don't think they'll be done by
I don't
April?
think so.
Okay, so
that'll be
then
fiscal
we
year
are,
29.
so then it's FY 29
Okay.
if that's the case.
So we should double check that
We
with
should
Shelley.
double check that.
So,
Or Sam.
so we're asking about the grand list in, San
Sam's
Juan?
right on their committee.
Yeah.
Is
No,
she on?
she's on
She
their
wasn't
committee.
there tonight.
And she wasn't
no.
here today, but. yeah.
Okay, so the grand list in April, 2027, will the appraisal be done? Probably not, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the question you need to know.
One comment I want to make about all this and kind of a proactive approach with budgeting, and you guys may be taking a lamb share of control, at least on the initial end, is there's a lot better continuity as of the last few years with some of these committees. There's more transparency, there's more fluidity between them. Because a lot of members are multi-jurisdictional, right? Like, and what's great about that is folks are bringing information that they know from a department, from a committee for something like that. And applying it directly to what might be the budget or might be the planning. And I think that that's really valuable because for us, the more of that open dialogue and good quality information we have, the more educated we can produce the budget on behalf of. So to me, I like that idea. Trying to start earlier as someone who ran a department for 10 years, I don't see how that would benefit any, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, and that's plain and simple. I mean, we even the best of laid plans, we figure out where, oh my God, here we are with this event or this, breakdown. So for me, I think I really like that. You guys are obviously the ones doing the majority of the legwork even after budgets are presented anyway. So me personally, that's kind of where I think it's a great idea. I do.
Yes, sir.
I also think once we have a town administrator, that person will be helping all of the groups even come together even more. And then can help work with the budget committee with what they know and what our needs are. But I like all three of those things. The communication, the getting with the committees so that we don't have to, ahead of time. And your second thing that you had said was. So community involvement. Yeah.
And when are you
Public
anticipating that, like a public forum, starting in January?
Oh, no. This will happen, because we'll have an idea in terms of capital spending. We'll have some feedback. I would imagine by October.
Oh, by October
By
already.
October, we'll be able to have some public meetings about capital spending with
Okay,
residents.
great,
Well, December tends to be a pretty much of a wash of a month between holidays.
right. I just didn't know if you have enough information
Yeah.
by that.
So remember, capital
Right,
is kind of runs on a separate track.
yeah,
So we'll be able to get feedback from folks on, what they can afford.
okay, right, yeah.
And also then pinpoint like what grants we should be going in for, like what kind of big expenditures are coming up so that we can have our town administrator looking for grants for that.
Hey, any other questions for the budget committee before we move on? Thank you for that succinct report.
All right.
You made it through in your 20 minutes.
Thank you.
He asked for a half an hour.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so Eric isn't here for the highway report, but he did, report. Ben, do you want to say anything about what's happening at the highway? I see you're here. And he did give us a report on, equipment and road work issues. No, okay,
It's just the international still down, still waiting for parts on that since June.
okay, so it's picking up today. That
What it
was,
was supposed to, they got the wrong brackets in.
oh, okay, so wrong, so that didn't happen, okay.
Remember,
And the grader had a 4,000 hours service.
Yeah.
They changed all the oils and took samples to have tested. Oh, that's interesting. Adjusted the valves and recalibrated the transmission. This helps make sure the warranty is not voided, and having the oil sampled can let us know if there are any issues before there is a catastrophic breakdown. We don't want a catastrophic breakdown that isn't under warranty. Excavator is fine. Okay. Old Brook Road waiting on design permits. Do you know anything about that, Paul?
Still the same,
Okay.
yeah, no, that was the one that, sorry. when you're referring
Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald, yes, amongst all the other stuff they're working on for us, they're gonna squeeze that in. And still be able to get us something to be able to put out, to bid, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Eric was gonna go talk to them today and I didn't hear back from him on what he had to say.
Lower Sunnybrook is on track to have the box culverts completed. And then we will just need to have the guardrails installed.
I can just give a brief
Yeah.
update on that. The company that we selected, Matthews Excavation, they've really been knocking it out of the park with, efficiency. We've heard good things with all the homeowners down there. They've been communicating with Eric. They're kind of on cruise control anyway between Fitzgerald and Eric, but things have been going really well. So far, I've been extremely pleased with the work they've done. And I've not heard any bad things from A&R, so I'm.
Okay, and then this is related though to just regular FEMA work, right?
That's really
Yeah.
correct.
And they start on Norton on Tuesday.
Correct.
Okay, winter sand is being hauled in Barrett's being hauled in. Barrett's Trucking is using it as filler work, so some days we have more trucks
Where
than
did they
others.
stand from?
Northeast,
From the stuff there.
it's that granite sand.
Did you see, I saw in Barry, I biked by the LaPage sand pit, like Barry. We get sand from them or?
It's beach sand.
Yeah,
That's beach sand?
that's pretty much what it's for
Oh, that's
pools and
good,
stuff.
yeah.
No, there's no
Stuff.
no stone at all.
Okay, grading this week, FEMA closeout work. And working on replacing missing signs throughout the town. Still in process as weather and workloads allow. Oh. Annual financial plan for the highways. That's not on the agenda to
No, it
approve.
wasn't. That's why when I saw it.
But I remember, Cheryl saying, oh, I'm working on this. Is there a date that this is due?
I'm sure there is.
Do you know anything about it, Bridget? This annual financial plan for town highways?
Cheryl was pretty detailed in her report to us tonight. She wanted me to read it aloud to you.
I was gonna see if she says anything. She didn't ask me to put it on the agenda to
No,
approve it.
Eric didn't say anything about it to me when we spoke
Okay.
earlier, so I think it can wait until 2 weeks from
Okay.
now. And if it can't,
Well, we
have
can
to
have
have a special meeting.
Yeah. I don't see anything in her, I don't see anything in her treasurer report. Okay. So this is beginning 7/1/2026. So this is related to the budget that we already did and how they're being parceled out among class 3 roads and class 2 roads. Class 2 is like the highway, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then winter maintenance and non-winter maintenance. Okay. And that number, I'm assuming 1,227,000 matches the number that's in our,
It is supposed to.
it's supposed to.
There would, I do think that, I believe that some grants and stuff can sometimes be applicable to that.
Okay,
So it may not always perfectly, but
okay,
generally it does.
Says down below, right, Matt?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
all right, so I guess I'll put it on the agenda for, unless it has to be approved, but I feel like I need Cheryl here and she's not saying anything. I mean, she's not here, it doesn't say anything about it yet. I could text her and we could just table this for a minute, like in case
If
we
you want
need to come
to.
back while we're here. Okay, so what about the FEMA updates? Zara?
So
Any
there
updates?
were no meetings yesterday. We've done scope of work changes. There's nothing, I'm sorry I didn't put it together report, but there's nothing really to report. Adding some money from things that were missing, doing the granular accounting. We've just finished McCullough and moving on to 4810. It's the project closeout that we're doing with the state. Also, our FEMA rep just had a baby, so there's some James not as available.
always-
Yeah, it's always something.
It's always.
We're really on track. Everything's done and wrapped up, and our state reps are making sure we have every dollar. 4720 matched pretty evenly because they were done on actuals. 4810, which is the 2024 work, we're done on estimates. And we are. So hopefully I'll have good news to report at the end of that.
Great. So do we have any update, Paul, on the box culvert stonework repair?
Yeah, so I reached out actually over a week ago to Rachel, who's I'm sure pretty swamped this time of year. Eric and I did with Eric and I to try and get just a quick meeting together with her to do an updated drive around on all of the culverts to see a lot of the items that we got dinged on were like, they had a high likelihood of like self-mitigation, regarding like certain materials, water flowing through things. So rather than, addressing them immediately, they agreed with us that we could wait on some of those things. So I'd like to get a final word from her on what things I can take off the list. That way we can put together something formal, figure out whatever permits we need through her so that we can present something to her for approval and then go to Dirt Tech and work collaboratively with that. So I am waiting to hear back from her.
Okay, do you mind reaching out again?
I'm
Probably
happy to.
needs to go right back into
Yeah.
the top of the inbox.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that, we have this October 1st deadline, and I know that they're willing to work with us when we're making, efforts. I just, was under the impression that there were some culverts that just absolutely had to have a switch of stone regardless, like they just wanted to see that different stone.
And it wasn't a switch, it was added. It was
Yeah.
fines added, just
Yeah.
like toss in some fines so the aquatic way could get through.
Yeah, I just don't want that to, the snow start to fly and we haven't, addressed it. Okay, alrighty, Adrian's here. Hi, Adrian, how are you? Oh wait, I had the fire department, folks who were not, I meant to add that as an amendment to the agenda, but, just go right ahead and tell us what's happening because there's no action anyway on the fire department.
We had total calls this year was 65. We had 9. We had no utilities in or out. We had a max member response of 7, which is pretty dang good. Minimum of 5. Sorry, well, actually, I mixed these up. It was a minimum of 3, and then it was supposed to be an average of 5. I got them backwards. Engine 1 was out 8 times. Engine 6 was out once. Tanker 1 was out 2 times. Rescue 1 was out 5 times. Truck 14 was not out at all. And we had 8 personal vehicle responses. On 7/21, we had a tree on fire on Government Hill. And then we had the same rekindle on the same day of that exact tree on Government Hill again. We had a tree on the power lines on Route 2 on the 8th. On 8/9, we had a tree across the road requiring removal. On 8/9, we also had a motor vehicle accident reported by a crash detection service, but nothing was found. On 8/10, we had a car versus deer on 89 southbound. On 8/13, we had a 2-car motor vehicle accident in a work zone on 89 south. And we had a 2-car motor vehicle accident on the same day on 89 south, the smoking vehicle. 8/14, we had a fire alarm activation with no visible smoke or fire. And we had 13 total fast squad calls and 9 of them were medical only. For training this month, we did live outdoor search and rescue training and EMT trauma, airway and bleeding refresher. We had no repairs that I know of, no purchases, and I had nothing else to add.
You are awesome, all of you. Thank you so much. Please thank everybody for us.
Thank you.
Perfect. 5:32.
They don't set anything
Yep.
different. Great, thank you so much. Okay.
Update from Liz.
Update from Liz. And I have Adrian here as well. For the emergency watershed program, so. This is called the 2025 Emergency Watershed Protection. There are 4 households that are
24.
it's from the 2024 flood, but it's for 2025, yeah. Because we had one in 2024 for the 2023 flood. So there are 4 projects, and what we have, what has happened thus far is that 4 homeowners still believe they want to be in the program, okay? They all still have time to back out of the program if they want to. 2 of them had to have tree removal on Brook Road before the bat habitat moved in. So they signed their landowner agreement and operations and maintenance plans. And so they are all set with their landowner agreements, but we have 2 other landowners.
Got one.
You got 1 signature. Okay, so 2 more landowners that need to complete this form that basically says they're responsible for the 25% match that will come to the town. It will be like something that they send to the town and then the town pays the contractor to do the work. The good news is that and Cheryl's not here and she may say, oh, it doesn't really matter. It sounds like we can get an advance. This was not an advance grant. This was where we had to come up with the 75% ourselves and then get reimbursed by the federal government. So let's say the project costs $100,000 for one person's job, right? they're responsible for 25% or 25,000, and the town would have to pay 75,000 and then get reimbursed that 75,000. It sounds like from what Lincoln from Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission has told me that they've given us permission, because I think they know sort of the state of our affairs, that it could be hard for us to come up with $75,000. That they would actually advance that money to us. So that is an option, although Cheryl did mention that we do still have that big loan out from the bank that we have, that there is money there available to draw on that as well if necessary. But before they send out the RFP for the construction, so they look for someone who wants to do these 4 projects, they need all 4 landowner agreements, so that the construction people can have a realistic quote of how much this is gonna cost, or even want to take on the job, depending on how many jobs are available. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. The other thing is that they have estimated how much, they have these engineers who have come out and estimated how much these projects are gonna cost. So for example, one project they think is gonna come in around $79,000. But I also know that the person who had done our EWP the year before had given this landowner a private quote of around $100,000 to do that same work. So the construction person could go in and say, actually, it's not gonna cost 75, it's gonna cost 125,000 to do this work. So that still allows the homeowner to back out and say, well, I don't have that 25% anymore, right? I thought it was gonna be this amount, and so I don't want to do this project. So there is still an opportunity for homeowners not to participate. It's in their best interest to participate, because this is really about saving their homes from the next flood and falling into the river, and really doing a lot of shoring up of the river to protect their asset. So right now, once we get those 4, that final signature, then we can move forward with Central Regional Planning Commission getting together the RFP to go out to bid on those projects.
We're still waiting on one design, I think.
Yeah, that's what you said. There's
The
one more.
engineer has to do mill one,
Oh.
but she hasn't finished the design.
Oh, so she hasn't finished the design work. Okay.
So she's
I mean, the hope is that it happens this fall.
working on it, yeah.
The work?
Yeah, the work itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hope.
How can we help you get the 4th person? Like Colin was really good at helping us get that 3rd person.
I can reach out again. I sent it last week.
If not, Colin Marshall, who's on our emergency planning,
Oh.
yeah, he lives on the brook. He bought,
Yeah, I know where he lives there.
he will walk right over and knock on their door for you.
Okay, I think they're next door neighbors.
So if you're not getting
Yeah,
anywhere with
I
their.
think they're not convinced that they're gonna do it. I think that's the hesitation
okay.
for that
Yeah.
landowner.
Okay.
Um,
So anyway,
I can
that's.
Email again and say, just sign it.
Cause you can pull out,
You can
like
pull out.
find out what, let the
Yes.
engineers at least
Right,
tell us
and we
what
can
it
at
costs.
least go out to bid.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yep. But that's the one where the design's not done yet either.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we don't know how much it's gonna
Right.
cost, and they may be like, absolutely not. once
They're
they-
definitely on the fence.
Yeah,
you know?
okay. So hopefully all of that, and this is a little different from the previous years, when we did it in 2024. Because it was 100% paid for by the federal government. So there was no town match, there was no work on the town's part to actually collect the money, have a separate account for it, make the payments and all that kind of, I mean, the town had to make the payments, but they got 100% reimbursement, I think is how it worked. So it was just very easy for the homeowners. So anyway, that is just the update on that. I'm not sure why it says action likely. Oh, because you wanted to adopt
You need
the,
to accept the landowner agreement.
yeah, we need to accept the landowner agreement. So it's somewhat retroactive because, we already sent it out to 2 people in this desperate, we had a very short window of time. We had like a day before the bats moved in, that we had to get these landowner agreements signed, and Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission had already pulled these together. So, so there's a landowner agreement, I don't think it's actually in this package, that is, basically, it states, and I almost want to say we've maybe done this already, but maybe we didn't, because this was way back in April. That we want to make a motion to approve the landowner agreement and the, I'm sorry, landowner agreement and operation and maintenance plans, of which I don't have a copy, but they were
Liz, is that
created by.
operation and maintenance, is that ongoing, like for future?
Let me,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
so they need to inspect it every year and make sure it's holding, and if it's not holding, we need to let the select board know. And then figure out what to
So
do.
there's some guidelines.
There's some pretty specific
Stuff, yeah.
guidelines. It talks about vegetation, it talks about gravel, it talks about the rocks. And the landowner agreement talks about how to get the money to the town. And if the budget runs over, then they'll have to get more. If it's under what it is, the town has to reimburse them the difference.
I guess my question would be, is the design phase going to delay us so much that we miss either a window of opportunity for the projects, or B, a window of like a timeline window set for this?
She told me she was gonna have those done in August.
Okay.
And
she's pretty done, she's done with all of them, I think.
No, she's done 3. She hasn't done the
The
4th.
fourth one, right.
She didn't want to do until she's working, like, the other one came to me last week and the one before came the week before, so she's on it. And I hope Central Vermont Regional Planning will do the bidding. They did that whenever it was 2
Yeah,
years.
they're doing
Yeah.
most of the work. on this.
They're amazing. Yeah, I'm sort of the go-between here.
So I'm just gonna say that overall, the state is very aware that Brook is a problem. Brook in Middlesex, the road, everything that's going on with that, and they are actually, Central Vermont Regional Planning Committee is putting together a big forum specifically to talk about Brook Road and the frugality of it. Mike Hill is going to be, or sorry, Mike Klein is gonna be going. Laney, who I'm working with for the state to try to get that BRIC grant is going. The scientist who is planning on doing all the work within the brook is going along with a bunch of Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. If you want an invitation, I can forward that to you.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll see if that.
So they are planning something in October to talk more about what can be done
I'm sure it's a great case
to
study.
save the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
If anyone's interested, it's here. It's just about, so the landowner agreement is really about their 25% that they are willing to put toward the town. And that's 25% of the final construction costs. And
And they have to do that ahead of time.
yeah, they have to do that ahead of time, yep. About like if it's less than 25% of the final construction costs, the landowner shall pay the remaining balance to the town within 30 days after receipt of the town's accounting.
What's the motion you need?
I just need a motion to approve the landowner agreement and the operation maintenance and agreement for the EWP.
I would make a motion for what she said.
This form is standard.
It's a
What it
standard,
was
yes.
Yeah.
Except that it's the 25%, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what we've already used.
Yeah,
Well, it's a little different because no one had to pay.
You know, yes, so this is what's different about it. Yeah.
right.
So they had to do the operation part of it, but they didn't
Yeah.
have to do the
Yeah.
payment part of it.
So it's called the landowner agreement and the operations
Maintenance.
and maintenance agreement for the emergency watershed protection.
Was that sent to us?
I thought I had, but I might not have. I just forwarded.
This
it,
is
but
not
I-
something we put together, it's through
It's,
CBI.
yeah, it's Central Vermont Regional Planning
Yeah.
Commission. So this isn't like something that like I decided to.
I'm gonna go ahead and second.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Aye. Okay. And I can forward these to you guys. I sent you the PDF, didn't I?
Yes. You sent me.
I sent you a PDF?
I promised her.
Yeah, so you
I
have.
know I got
did
it.
send
You
it.
sent, you sent.
Okay, so I
you
did
sent
send it to the.
Yeah, you sent
All right.
this in,
Okay, so I did.
yeah, on
all right.
August 13th.
Okay, so you did get it, okay. All right, so all those in favor said aye, okay, the ayes have it, all right. So we are now at a point, where we are discussing the next steps for the outstanding invoices to New England Engineering. For the box culvert drawings completed in 2025 for box culvert installation still under corrective action by ANR. Action possible. So this is a situation where we have a bill, and I know that Cheryl sent out to all of us. We should have gotten a copy of that. Of the bill from New England Engineering. Which the original bill was just basically 2 line items, and then with no explanation of what work was done. It totaled about $55,000, I think, between the two line items. And
How much?
55,000.
What?
Mhm.
No. I'd rather send all of my correspondence to Rob.
Well, this is not an executive session. This is what we need to talk about in public. And so I think, the owner of the company reached out to me and said, these are still outstanding invoices. And I said, yes, we're aware of that and that we would talk about it, at this meeting. And I think my, conundrum is, well, there's a couple of things. One is that there was no contract signed to do this work. And this work was done on behalf of a member of the FIT committee
Road committee.
who offered to do these drawings and was taken up on the offer by Eric and I think maybe you, Zara, with not an understanding that there was going to be some
Financial
cost to this. And then when I heard concerns, this was way back in November of 2025, concerns from ANR about these culverts and the work that had been done on them, as well as the engineering of the culverts, and that they were not going to accept the engineering of future culverts designs from this same person. This same New England consulting, the same firm, New England Engineering. I then reached out to the engineer from New England Engineering and I said, I don't quite understand, are you charging us for these drawings? And this person said, well, I'm not charging you for everything, but we're under contract. And I said, we are? And I said, I don't remember any contract. And then shortly thereafter, that person reached out to Eric and said, here's a contract, will you sign it? And I said to Eric, please do not sign this contract. And so the contract was never signed. There was work that was done. And in my conversations with our attorney, Rob, he said that in Vermont, you can still have work done that you need to pay for that isn't under contract. So our job is to determine, was this work of value, right? Like, were these drawings okay, right?
and timely. Don't forget timely, which we're not.
And so my point is that just because there wasn't a contract signed doesn't mean that we don't owe this firm some money.
Right, these are principles of equity. If we were to accept the work without pay, they can say that we've been unjustly enriched. And that's the question, is just what work was done that actually benefited the town? What's the fair value for that work?
Right.
to just ignore any work, to disregard any work that was done exposes the town to liability to that individual's claim for paying for work, but it's an equitable claim. It just means that even though there's no contract, you can still file a lawsuit and ask for this, because it's like fair.
Right.
That's the best way.
And I do want to be fair, if some of those drawings were fine and accurate, I mean, I know, for example, one of the drawings had the correct stone that the contractor didn't use, so like, that's not the engineer's problem, right? That was a problem from the construction company not using the right stone. So I think that, but here's my, my quandary is that I don't know how to read these drawings. I don't know if these drawings are accurate, right? I don't know what, and I do know, and having heard from like talking with Eric and maybe you, Paul, that like an engineer can do a drawing, but when the contractor goes in to actually do the work, there's some things that they see that that don't get put in a drawing, like, oh, there's, this type of rock that I can't get into here. And so the drawing said I was supposed to do this, but I physically can't do it. So I'm going to do something else. So those things happen, I think.
The drawing is a two-dimensional plan of action. It is not a three-dimensional knowing what we don't know example. So we build by our best abilities to the design specification. Does not always happen like that. For me, the biggest, I'll step back. For me, it would be good to take time, meet with even Rachel and the other gentleman from A&R, Jaren, to figure out which of these would be were or would have been applicable and acceptable. To me, that tells me these are the drawings that held water. And should be compensated for at a fair market value, which I doubt their services, or I don't doubt that their services are a fair market value. That I do not doubt.
Yeah.
What I do have a real problem with is what seemed like a good volunteer member of the community using that platform to kind of wedge in and just kind of pull the wool over to offer services at a cost that were, number one, not agreed upon. Number two, were never laid out in the open. And thirdly, you did that as part of a volunteer committee openly.
Right, and I just want to add too, that I believe that some of those charges for meeting times were included in those volunteer, and I'm like, they were never in the contract, which we didn't sign. There were things that there would be meetings, right? That there would be walkthroughs of the culvert. None of that happened with anyone from the town, to my knowledge. And that's the thing that, like, I don't want to pay for that piece, right? I'll pay for the drawings if there are drawings that are accurate in the time that it took to do those drawings and they're acceptable drawings. But I don't want to pay for all this fluff that was put in a contract that we didn't agree to.
Fifthly,
Yes.
we had to, he held us up in projects. He actively held us up and we had to say, where are these things that you've promised to do for us?
Are those for the later ones or were those for because those?
Well, that's the problem. We need to, I would like to do a timeline, and I would like to go through every single email and every single correspondence that I had. I know I never said we're gonna pay you for this, because I know better.
Yes,
I would
Stacey.
suggest as like in terms of immediate next steps before we begin to negotiate, like just how much we owe. These invoices, which maybe we, since we're talking about them in open meeting, they should be available if anyone asks for them, but they're currently just blank. They're just lump sum amounts, and I think it'd be reasonable to request a more detailed itemization of or explanation of the.
They did. She didn't include that second one. There was a second detailed. I requested that a long time
I
ago.
don't know that I saw.
I didn't see.
I'm almost certain there was a second one that had some breakdown that wasn't that much more detailed, but it was more than that.
The one for 9,000 has one line item, and the one for 44,900 has one line item, culverts.
Yeah, I thought
is
that there was a second
there's-
one. I'll have to look through my emails.
Okay, I mean, that would be the start. It sounds like we
Yeah.
could all use that information to have a more productive conversation about what they're asking us to pay for.
And are you saying that they should be on our website right now? Those are available to the public, as you said, somehow as
How
part of
could
the.
how could it not? It's a liability of the town. It's one that we're discussing how we address.
So where does it need to go on the website?
I think it would be an attachment.
It would
to
be
the-
attachment to
our
our minutes or
Okay.
like
Yeah.
an agenda packet
Yeah.
or something like that.
And I'm gonna search for that other, I'm almost certain after I said this is not an acceptable invoice. I need details, that there was details sent, and I think Cheryl had them as well, yeah.
Wasn't it
Okay.
more than just the culverts? Didn't it affect the Old Brook Road and the design?
Yes, there were things included
That
in
was-
that, which
and-
I already told the owner that I was not paying for any of
Right.
that.
And that's held up our road being repaired
Yep.
for over a year.
Right.
You're absolutely.
And that's
That's
totally
cost.
unexpected.
Are we gonna get repaid by that, for that cost?
Well, and I think to kind of round it out is just the conflict of interest that it created.
Yeah.
It
No,
was a
very
major grief.
strange-
It was a very
Yeah,
real.
it was
grief.
not, and it
Everybody involved knew that there needed to be an RFP process for anything like that.
Yeah.
That would be money.
yeah, but the bottom line is that if there was work that was done that was acceptable and that we benefited from, we need to pay for it. Yes, Matt, or Kuya.
I'd just like to ask that, as you consider all of that process, also keep in mind that I assume the town normally enters into contracts that would have some amount of language for handling disputes that came up like this. And we don't have that in place here. And so I think that should be, that whatever is paid should be reimbursed, should be prorated to account for all of the back and forth and additional work that is having to occur because we didn't do this normal process that any normal business would go through.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you for
Thank
that,
you.
Matt.
Can we do a quick summary of next? So you will email us if you have them, a more itemized.
Yeah, and more
breakdown.
itemized breakdown.
We could try and correspond it, cross-reference with old meeting minutes of road committees, things like that. Your timeline, you're gonna be really good with the timeline
Yep.
stuff. We can cross-reference it with what projects those designs were applicable for. We obviously know several of them that were not applicable or were denied. I mean, to me, that's,
Yeah, that I've already said to the owner. I would-
yeah, for sure. So,
So really, we're talking about those, I think it's those 5 culverts that are still, that are still under A&R, but that, those drawings may, and I believe those drawings, when we got permits, those drawings were included with those permits, were they not?
that's an
Yeah.
Eric Czar question. That was before my
Okay,
time.
I think that,
Yeah, they had to go to Rachel.
they go to
did
Rachel,
that too,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that our next steps are to locate the we have them all, we
We
have
can
everything,
pull all the permits, see what
Yeah.
designs were attached to them that
Yeah.
were approved.
yeah,
Just cross-reference,
Yeah.
make sure what was actually used.
yeah, okay, and I think that there was, in a follow-up to the company, asking for more detailed invoice, I believe that it did identify those 5 culverts.
Great.
And so I think we
Hopefully
have that information, but I just need to go back and look at it. Okay, so there's no action on that. Okay, so we are just a little bit ahead. There's Bridget over here. So we are at the clerk's update on the progress of land records recording and a debrief of primary election day. Action unlikely. So Bridget, it looks like you have an update on the back here.
I do, and in Cheryl's absence, she asked me to read her update, which is included in the packet too.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with you though, because I think
Yep.
she's next.
So basically with regard to land reporting, progress has been made. I've moved from the indexing certified from April 27th to May 18th. The day book is current up until yesterday. Cashiering is good through 6/19, and digitizing, which is the scanning, is the same date as the indexing of 5/18. So there has been some progress made even with all the election work that we did last week. And I think that with the changes in my schedule, with the election now being behind us and the pre-work for November, not gearing up just yet, that I'll be able to become current before the end of the month. Amy is back from vacation. She was gone for 2 weeks. She's the assistant clerk whose hours are strictly geared toward land recording. So she's in tomorrow through Friday. I'd like to ask the committee or the board to consider, I have a grant opportunity where a personal donor would like to put money through the community foundation to the tune of 1 more day a week for Amy. And so it would just be a check coming from the community foundation to the select board to pay for that extra 1 day, because she's cleared up for 8 hours. So that would give her 12 hours, which would be 3 days a week from 8 to noon until land recording's caught up. And then with regard to elections, there were, overall, I thought the day went really well. I think the highlight of it was the volunteers. Everybody was really great about coming out on a Sunday and doing that day-long training, or not day-long, or evening training. And then we had all the tables staffed, everybody was upbeat, and there was always somebody available if anybody needed a break. And I think the one low point was late in the evening when I needed to get the early entry information into the state, and my brain got stuck on the difference between votes and ballots. And I should have called the state to get clarification. And the early entry wasn't early, it was entered on the 13th, which was the same date as the official return. And I've spoken with everyone in their office, and Sean, who is the head of that office, he has asked for us to all have a meeting before the November, so that I just have a better plan in place for late night when I'm just too tired to get it done myself. I think one of the critical issues was that the tabulator the night before, Chris and I did the early entries of the absentee ballots, and that went late, so we didn't get done that until about 11 o'clock midnight, and then was geared up again to go at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So and then I had newbies with me at the end. So I think that as I look to the November, I'll work harder to recruit people who have already been through the process of the recording for the state, and at the same time I've already mapped out what it is that the errors that I made and for reviewing and mapping how I will be looking to make changes for November. So that's land recordings and elections.
Are there any questions or comments? Yeah. So Steve Martin came to see me. He was here again. This was your deadline to have what he needed done, and you didn't make it. I guess I have a question. Did you make your husband a select board assistant?
No.
So he was here helping you with files and stuff without being deputized?
No, I don't know what you're referring to. During the election, I had my kids here who were handing out ballots, but everybody took it over.
The first time that Steve popped in, he met your husband who was helping you.
Oh, Bobby was voting.
Okay. I guess the one other thing that I'm gonna let you know, I've been told that if you fail to perform your ministerial duty, which is a non-discretionary duty outlined in state statutes, you're exposing yourself to a private right of action. In other words, If an individual is personally harmed financially by those land records not being recorded in a timely fashion, then you can be personally sued, and in that case, I don't know if PACIF would cover your legal expenses. I just want you to be aware of that.
I fully understand.
Kevin?
Kevin Thompson. I'm really upset about not election day. That went smooth. I came in and voted. Everyone was great, smooth. I'm really upset that it took so long to get our votes recorded with the Secretary of State's office. Basically, every election was called before our votes were recorded. So it's like I didn't vote at all. You took away my right to vote. You could have had somebody here holding your hand all the way through, from the day before the election, through the election, to the reporting. Somebody from the Secretary of State's office, they would have gladly been here. And you failed, as far as I'm concerned.
Dorinda?
I take to exception, nobody was here at the close of the polls that ever worked the polls.
That's not what I was saying during that.
Well,
Let Dorinda talk, please.
I handed you the sheet off with the tabulator and tried to tell you, if you take these numbers, I was never asked, I was here for 4 hours. The whole time you had somebody who had never worked an election before sitting next to you. I was never asked, I was put at a desk where I checked people in. No knowledge needed to be known there. And I would have helped you through that process. Instead, I was told, thank you for helping, good night. And that was what I was told. And I could have helped you. I've put those numbers in with previous town clerks for the last, I can't tell you how many years. And I think it's a shame. I warned everybody about doing the absentee ballots, how long it was going to take. But again, it was a blind or, a deaf ear. That's what it took. You could have had somebody experienced.
Thank you, Dorinda. Matt Rapuyak.
So I just want to speak to, I've had a number of conversations with townspeople about various.
Can you speak a little louder, Matt?
I've talked to a number of people, number of residents in town, whether it's been on business or just driving by on a road and seeing someone outside. I've heard a bunch of stories about trying to help out with the town clerk's office, where help is offered. These are people who have worked with the town for many years. They're sometimes taken up, sometimes told they don't want it. Oftentimes, if they're taken up, I then hear what it was too difficult. I was getting yelled at. I was getting this. I was getting that. They wouldn't take direction. I've had a lot of concerns raised about this. We've now had an election where undisputably it took extra time, extra days to get things done. I understand that Steve Martin's one person, but I don't understand what could possibly be happening with the land recording to cause us to have such a backlog when the town clerk is now staffed more than it has ever been in the history of the town. And Zara, I appreciate you calling out that there might be personal liability for some of these failures. Town clerks in Vermont have a lot of protections around the right of their job. This stuff has to get done. Brenda, what I'm hearing from residents is that you are not able to get the job done. Bridget.
I will also add that there is the town clerks association that does, I think that's someone that we can get in touch with, and they may be able to provide some support in training for you, Bridget. And I think, what we're sort of seeing and hearing from people is that you're not in the office a lot, and that there are, I understand that on the day after the election, you left in the middle of the day before we had even gotten our numbers to the Secretary of State. And I received a call from the newspaper wondering where our numbers were. And, that is when our country right now is so divided and concerned about mail-in ballots and voting and voting is our sacred right, and it is our duty to make sure that we are doing everything we can to ensure our townspeople that our elections are safe elections and that our vote is being counted. And if that means that you need to ask for help, you need to ask for help. And we cannot have a repeat of this in November. And it's just, you know, I really feel strongly about the fact that that this could be a real devastating mark on the town of Middlesex, that our elections didn't go as well as they could have gone, or that, you know, as Kevin says, even though our votes did count because they were in by the 48 hours, and those are unofficial those are unofficial results that come in, you know, in the first 24 hours. The fact that and it's such an important piece of providing the preliminary numbers didn't happen is really gives me pause. As a resident, right? I know that we are not your supervisor, but as a resident and a voter in Middlesex, I have some great concerns. I will also add, and this to me was another very big concern, was the absentee ballots. I did not understand the process by which absentee ballots were going out. So the way that it's supposed to work is someone asks for an absentee ballot, you're recording that somewhere in the state database system. And then when they return that, you're recording that it was returned. So that when we had our checklist, right, it would say that was, so if someone walked in, if Mrs. Smith walked in and said, I'm here to vote, we would say, oh, Mrs. Smith, you already got something in the mail. We already sent you something. Oh, and you've already returned it. So you can't vote again, right? We already have your ballot. That wasn't there. There was a piecemeal of sheets of paper of who had gotten their ballot and who had returned their ballot, and hours were spent reconciling it, and apparently it reconciled well. The Secretary of State did come here and help out on Wednesday, and it was reconciled. But you know, this was just a primary, right? Like there could have been 600 ballots that went out. And there has to be a process for that next time. There absolutely has to be a process for how we are doing these elections. As town clerk, elections and land records are the two most important things.
There is a process for it, and it's supposed to be handled within 3 days, that you're supposed to have it in the system, whether or not they've been issued a ballot. And that did not happen until whenever it was caught up. I
think it was caught up on Wednesday, maybe.
Probably, I don't know.
After election.
But it was not.
But that does not instill in me trust in the election process. And that's one thing that we really have to make sure that our residents and our state can trust our election process. Any other comments? Yes, Stacy.
I have a few comments, you know, recognizing that like you don't answer to us, the board, but we are a catch-all of complaints, and they continue to accumulate with respect to the clerk's fulfillment of very basic functions. I have a really, I appreciate the time and effort that you've put into troubleshooting why why our unofficial votes were not reported in accordance with state law. I'm relieved that our official votes were submitted within the time that they needed to be. But I have a really hard time reconciling this 20+ page PDF that you have provided to us with workflows and checklists to make sure this doesn't happen again when we have a 3-month backlog in our digital indexing. Like most people, most title insurance companies, most lenders, most anybody, lawyers, they're not going to come to the town of Middlesex in the 3 days that it's open to check the day book. And that backlog creates liability and headache and can cost people real money. You know, we don't know the impact necessarily because it may be more, the impact could be less visible than what we can see, but just the fact that we have a 3-month delay when we've allocated more hours to this position than ever before. You know, you have been in this office for more than 5 months. With the primaries, most of the issues there seem like terrible planning and execution. You put off the absentee ballots until a Sunday night. Like, that's crazy when the law requires them to be entered on a 3-day rolling basis. There's a really good reason that the law usually makes you do certain things, and staying on top of an absentee ballot processing is one of them. To just smoosh them all into a late night session sounds like something out of the textbook, like just what college kids might do, pulling an all-nighter. It's insane to me. And then we had all these issues, like, and for me, on the day after our results, like, I'm getting questions about why aren't our votes posted? Like, why is Middlesex the only town that doesn't have unofficial votes recorded yet? So I call the Secretary of State and I'm talking to the elections division around like 3 o'clock, and it's like, have you heard from our town clerk yet? And they're like, no, we called earlier, but we did talk to your treasurer and she was really helpful. It's like, well, gosh, our treasurer isn't responsible for delivering on our election, like our votes, our ballots. Like, that's great. Cheryl is so helpful, but that is not her job. And as far as I understand, you had actually gone home for a period of time the day after the election while our unofficial votes were still overdue and outstanding. And it wasn't until the evening when the Secretary of State seemed to bring someone there, whether it was summoned or they decided they should come check on us because we need a reminder. Doesn't matter. Like, they were there and it got done. I am relieved, but I am so frustrated that we are here and that nothing seems to be changing since the last time we had a conversation, since the last time we had a conversation. There's always reasons for the delays and the backlog, and that throwing more resources at this will solve the problem. But we already did that when we created this. We made this a full-time position with an assistant clerk. It's 40 hours a week, right? Or I'm terrible with math, but like, you know, we have a sum total of 40 hours a week and we have a 3-month backlog and we didn't get our election results timely filed. Like, to me, as a voter of Middlesex, I am frustrated and aghast that this is happening, you know? And I appreciate that a lot of time and effort has gone into figuring out what went wrong, but I really wonder, like, how long are we going to have to continue to have these conversations? Like, when nothing really seems to be changing in terms of the core issues of just doing the job in a timely fashion. So those are my comments and frustrations.
Thank you, Stacy. Are there any other comments?
I just have one other concern. Wednesday afternoon, you and I were in the office talking, and there's a pile of write-ins. Copies. You had made copies of ballots, which is like a big no-no. You can make copies of ballots after the 22-month holding period.
And they thought they were real ballots.
Yeah.
And I told them, and I said, these are not real ballots because they're too thin. These are copies.
However, they still would have run through the tabulator had somebody been able to pick them up. And they're just laying around, you know, it just is, I don't know when you're gonna realize that you're not doing your job, you're not capable of doing your job. you're taking this town that I love dearly down.
Okay,
Well, I'm sorry. Somebody has to say it.
I hear you.
Yes, Matt.
I've heard from other town clerks of other towns that they estimate that there is at least a month of backlog work for a competent town clerk to come in and do. So it's not only Dorinda, it's not only Kevin talking about jobs not getting done. I'm hearing it from many people, experts in the field, you know, actual acting town clerks.
So there's backlogs.
No, so suppose we got a new town clerk.
Yeah.
How long would it take someone to work, not on the work taking forward, just to get a house in order with the reportings and everything
Yeah.
else? There's at least a month of an experienced town clerk background there.
Competent person that knows what they're doing.
Okay. And the point is that this has been 5 months.
My point is that this isn't just Dorinda saying this. I'm hearing this from other people. So when Bridget says she hears Dorinda, I want to make sure she's aware that this is not a individual saying it.
The word is out on the street.
Everyone's not. A surprising amount of people are talking about this, and other towns we've talked to who have offered training, offered to help out, sometimes been taken up, sometimes not. Their town clerk expectation is to take a month of just focusing on what we haven't done to get done. And it's only growing.
I see. So for the backlog that we have right now, we need a month's worth of
Yes.
work, of solid sitting at the desk doing the work. Yeah. So, yeah, and I think, one of the reasons why we have also, have this town administrator position is not to do town clerk duties, but to take anything on that isn't a statutory duty in a town clerk, right?
Yeah, I just want.
And there's a lot of that.
I apologize for speaking up. I want to be clear, that the work I was just talking about is not town administrator work.
That
It's
is
just recording, indexing, making sure everything's entered, everything's been responded to that it needs to be responded to. And I am terrified of a town administrator being hired into an environment like this. Because while it may not be their job or in their job description to do it, how are they going to be in the same building when this stuff is going on? We just heard that Cheryl picked up the phone for the Secretary of State. Where was the town clerk? I'm worked up about this because this is not the kind of thing that is a he said, she said.
Well, I think this also just, to me is also, a reminder that the town clerk job, like when we think about elected officials, right? Like I often think about politicians, right? We elect a state representative, a house representative to represent our town, to go and work in the state house, to help make laws, right? A town clerk and a town treasurer for that matter are doing actual tasks and jobs, right? Like they have a lot of work that needs to get done. And it's not necessarily easy, right? There's a lot of executive function that's required for these jobs. There is time management that's required for these jobs. There's being in person, being ordered, having a lot of systems and orders in place in order to be effective, which was why we had originally put on our warning back in March that we felt like, given our aging population and the fact that we know that these jobs are more complex than ever, that we need to make sure that we have qualified people who do this job. That did not pass, as we know. Neither the treasurer nor the town clerks were voted to become appointed positions. And so we know that when you're an elected official, your boss is the town, right? It's the people. And so, there's not a lot we can do as a select board except for communicate and try to really let you know, Bridget, that this has been very challenging. Yes, Larry.
I just want to give Bridget a chance to answer, because there's been a lot of stuff talked. Do you have, if you have anything to say about all these
Thanks,
different
Larry.
things?
I hear you clearly. When the email went out saying desperate for a town clerk, as a business professional, I volunteered to run. I did not come at this as a, striving, in order to be a town clerk. I thought based on my skill set, I had just about as good a chance as anybody. And my kids are going to inherit property in this town. And so I put my name in the hat. And it's been 5 months of a lot of learning. And I think that if you were to poll the people who have been in the office, speaking with me, dropping off their checks, getting their dog licenses, it hasn't been granted, even those opportunities to meet townspeople hasn't been a slam dunk. But I would say that there have been more people pleased with what I've been able to provide them than not. I feel for everybody in the group where I have fallen down. It's been very blatant, very obvious. I think that we all face challenges and that I'm doing the best that I can to get through it as I can. I spoke with a number of people about having additional support. And I think that I look forward to speaking with the select board about authorizing those payments to move the assistant clerk from 8 hours to 12 hours so that the phone and the visitors in the morning can be handled and that Cheryl and I can move forward on big chunks of work. I think when we read Cheryl's report following mine, we're not making up the fact that the office is quite busy. And that once we hit the 32 hours of dealing with everybody that we're being allocated, it's a matter of taking time out of hours that at my age, to tell you the truth, it is a sacrifice to come in and work all weekend long. I put in 55 hours last week and I only charged the town 40. I think I'll let it rest there. I think that I have identified clearly where it is that I could benefit from support. I've opened up avenues for funding for someone to come in and answer the phone on an extra day. I have a volunteer that helped me this morning that was great. And the more familiar I am with the job and where I'm falling down, the more prepared I'm going to be to actually line people up so that I can actually do the job to the best of my abilities and to what the select board and our townspeople deserve. So I think that I hear you clearly and we will move forward.
So I had an idea for more help for you that you had brought up early on. You doing less hours and an assistant doing more hours. I don't know how many hours you need to work, but you had said you'd thrown out 15 at a budget meeting. You have to work 18 legally to have health insurance as town clerk. But you could be doing 2 days in the office, 2 hours at home. Have Amy doing 8 hours, so she would fulfill 1 day, and then you could hire somebody else to be 16 hours, 2 days. And in that way, the town offices could be open far more.
I think that would be great. I think that 3 days from 9 to noon for Amy, and that is outside of what's currently budgeted. So the folks would be really.
I'm talking about taking the budget from town clerk. So if you were working less hours, right, the budget that we have for the town clerk would then go to help pay for the other the additional. And basically, you're cutting your 32 hours in half.
I hear you. I think that
you don't have to make any decisions. I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
I'm just saying, my concern would be that that person would be fully trained in those jobs in the different tasks.
There are ex-town clerks who would be willing to come in and train a new person.
Understood.
Yes, Matt.
I just wanted to the select board. I have significant concerns about putting more staffing or more money at this. We need to make sure that there's someone with the appropriate oversight and sign off on these duties to make sure that they're getting done. Adding more bodies to this does not solve the problem, in my view.
And I do not feel comfortable with some donation to the community fund. I really
No.
do not feel comfortable with that at all. Yes.
And the assistant clerk is supposed to work under the direction of. the
Yes,
clerk.
that's the other
So
thing.
That's
We have no
part
control
of
over
it.
that person.
I have one other question. What about the select board calling a special election again to put the question out there to appoint?
That would have to be a special town meeting.
Yes.
Is that right, Rob? If you wanted to do something between now and March, you could have a
Yeah.
special town meeting.
But you could do it.
But
Yes, Stacy.
But even if, so like, I see a lot of these, the issues as making a very strong case for the select board to present to the town why they might want to reconsider their vote on transmuting the town clerk position from an elected one to an appointed one. But my understanding is that our current town clerk was voted onto a 3-year term. So calling it, whether we do a special town meeting in the fall or whether we put the question to the voters again in the spring, that the appointment would only take effect after, no?
No, that's not my
Immediate.
45
Immediate.
days. Or
Yeah.
that's the select board's choice.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you for correcting me on that then.
Yeah, so had it passed, in March and Bridget had been voted in, likely what would have happened is that we would have appointed Bridget. We would have had 45 days to either say we want someone else, or we would have appointed Bridget, and then Bridget would be working under the select board. So that 3-year no longer is applies if it becomes an appointment. Okay, so, unless just in the interest of time and getting through our agenda, do you want to just do a quick treasurer's update? Bridget?
Well, Cheryl asked to read it, so if you guys just want to have it as a supplement to the,
She wants it read aloud.
that's what she asked me.
Okay, I'll read it aloud because it's easier to have it. So the past 2 weeks have been extremely busy with tax collections, regular daily responsibilities, required reporting, FEMA reimbursement work, delinquent tax collection, and preparations for the new town administrator. Property tax collection. We mailed 939 property tax bills this year. Since the bills were mailed on July 20th, payments have been coming in steadily, with a noticeable number of taxpayers choosing to pay earlier than in previous years. We currently have 116 taxpayers enrolled in the town's ACH program, representing approximately $222,395 in tax payments. This is an all-time high for ACH participation. That's through your bank account automatic withdrawal. About a dozen taxpayers have signed up for ACH just in the weeks leading up to the August 20th installment due date, which is a significant increase. Another 165 households have their property taxes escrowed. CoreLogic sends the town a file that must be carefully reviewed and verified for quality control purposes before payment can be processed. This requires numerous emails as well as approximately half an hour on the phone to complete the verification process. Once finalized, the file is uploaded to the town and CoreLogic sends the funds to the town's bank account as a single ACH payment. Residents are also increasingly utilizing the town's online payment portal. Since electronic payments began coming in on July 26th, 48 households have paid $104,099.70 through the online portal. Each of these transactions must still be individually entered into the town's cash receipts module. This is a time-consuming process that takes just as long as entering a check. But at least we get the money, and we know the check isn't getting bounced. Between the town-administered ACH program and online payments alone, we have processed approximately $326,494.50 in property tax payments electronically. The remaining payments are received primarily through mail checks and walk-in payments, all of which required additional processing and data entry. This represents a substantial amount of work for town staff in a relatively short period of time, particularly when combined with daily phone calls, resident questions, deposits, and other regular town business. One trend I've noticed this year is that taxpayers appear to be paying earlier in all 4 installments. I cannot say with certainty what is causing the shift from previous tax years. One possibility is that people see less benefit in holding on to the funds for interest. Okay, I don't know what this means. $77,866.20 Portal Road, 2023 flood reimbursement. Woohoo, means a funny thing. It came in, okay. Bills are rolling in from Fitzgerald, and we just received the $179,000 invoice today from Camp Precast for the box culvert. Ooh, on Lower Sunnybrook flood 4720. Overall, this has been an exceptionally busy period for the treasurer's office and town staff. Tax collection alone involves significantly more behind the scenes work than simply receiving payments. ACH files, escrow payments, online transactions, mailed checks, walk-ins, deposits, reconciliation, individual cash receipt entries, taxpayer questions, and delinquent collections are all require staff time while normal municipal operations continue. At the same time, we are completing required state and federal reporting, continuing FEMA reimbursement work, actively collecting delinquent taxes, and preparing for the town administrator. Despite the workload, there has been significant progress. ACH participation is at an all-time high. Woo-hoo! More taxpayers appear to be paying early. Woo-hoo! Tax year 2024 delinquencies have been completely collected. Yay! And more than 54,000 in delinquent taxes has been collected since July 1, and more than 1 million in FEMA reimbursements is currently anticipated. The rainbow at the end.
She did a great job.
Cheryl Trumpton, the rainbow sprinkling colors.
Yay! All right, thank you, Cheryl. Okay. And we do have orders, by the way, from Cheryl to sign, and please, people, before the end of the night, please don't run off until I make sure you've signed all of these numerous, minutes and things like that, okay? Okay, possible, and so at 6:30, we are not doing, the possible announcement of the town administrator hiring because we were still in the process of a job offer, a pending job offer, and that's why we are having the executive session in a little bit. So now we are on to discuss performance of select board chair regarding unilateral communications, interactions with committees and third parties, and adherence to board decisions and governance expectations, action unlikely. So this was something that Stacy asked that we put on the agenda. So Stacy, I will give this to you if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I want to keep this light and forward looking. I don't want this, what I don't want this to be is a debate over every incident. What I want is to make sure that we are all on the same page, that we as a board are, we comply with open meeting law, we comply with ethics laws, and also just we, respect the body. And so there's been there's been some instances where you have, I think, you have tried to make things happen and to do what you felt or believed was best, or acting on information that maybe only you had. I think that's my biggest concern is that sometimes you get information that you do not share with the whole board, but then it eventually, then the board is tasked with addressing an issue to which the information that you have that the rest of the board does not have, is beneficial. Like, we really should all be on the same page in terms of what everybody knows. I don't think this board, and I don't think just like the general governance, is that we all operate on like a need to know basis. Like, we're all very accountable and very transparent to our voters. And, I think we work very well as a board. And so like, I don't mean this, like, I don't want this conversation to be punitive, but also like, I want you to stop trying to fix things all by yourself, because at the end of the day, we're a 5-person board. We can, like, if it's an issue that we need to discuss in open meeting, like, we will. So I think and it's important to clarify the expectations for the chair's role and the vice chair's role with the upcoming TA. That was the other thing. It's just like, okay, we've been operating without a select board assistant. And I think that's part of the blur. The issues get blurred because we haven't had a dedicated assistant. You have dedicated so many hours of your time just doing all of the work that Sarah did. And then we had just filling that void. It's thankless work. And also, I think, has created this situation where you are privy to a lot more information about like the ongoings and items that are coming onto the agenda that don't always spread out again to the rest of the board. And as a sitting board member, that's problematic. It was not so apparent, if we had a dedicated assistant. It's not like that assistant is subject to open meeting law per se, or subject to like the governance of the board itself. And so I foresee this issue not. Like, I guess the town administrator coming in should alleviate a lot of the like extra conversations that you're having with folks right now to prepare the agenda. And so I remain decidedly optimistic that this is not, that this will not continue to happen where you're, talking with other committee chairs or, having conversations with folks, in a representative, like as chair or kind of representing generally the interests of the board without actually being expressly authorized by the board, things like that. We'll have a TA that will be able to delegate a lot of that to, and it protects us, this board, and, falls squarely within the scope of the role and responsibility of the TA. So that is that's just what I wanted to put on the record, I guess. And I will give it back to you if you want to chime in.
I just want to, for the record, state that I've never broken an open meeting law. Like I have not we've never had a meeting as a select board without, 3 or more members without it being a public meeting. So I just want to make that clear. There have been instances where I've gone and talked to people or 1 or more board members have gone and talked, which is not the open meeting, but I understand what you're saying, Stacy. And I do take it to heart. I do, a part of it is just, me and my, I just take charge and I do that at work and the lines get blurred. And as you know, we're all very busy and I don't always have time to, necessarily let everybody know about something that might be, on the agenda, like emergency watershed protection. I'm just putting it on the agenda, right? It's it's not something that, I'm going to, ask for the okay, can we have this on the agenda? But I think you're right. I think having the town administrator is going to be super helpful. I think it's going to alleviate a huge amount of work. Maybe not in the beginning, but once this person, I think this person is, that we hope takes the job, will be able to, be someone who's highly functioning and will be super helpful. But I do appreciate, I agree with you. I agree that, we want as much transparency as possible. And that, part of maybe the way I behave too is just how past board chairs have behaved, right? It's you just you learn from your previous, there's not a lot of training, right? Yeah.
That there was a culture that perhaps predates this whole board of folks that were just fixing problems, outside of scheduled meetings. And it's, we don't have to keep doing it that way. And I think we're making, just I would ask the same, if I was, acting in a way that kind of gave someone else on this board pause for whatever reason, I would hope that you would have the same, we'd have the same conversation. We should all be able to hold each other accountable, and do what we need to do to try and protect the town's interests, right?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment?
No, and I'll also say, as board members in general, Zara always says it perfectly, the drinking from the fire hose analogy. And it's true. And everything comes in at warp speed. It doesn't always come in to the board as a whole. I'm certainly guilty and admit times where I've tried to use my knowledge of certain subjects that I'm really good at or my profession to try and help. And maybe I think of that as alleviating the board of yet another fill in the blank. And to Stacy's point, just because you feel that or even myself feel that it's a good intention or anything, it can be taken in a way that would feel as if the other board members are not privy to that, and all of a sudden you spring something on them. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we all can, and I certainly can be guilty of that as well.
Yes, Larry.
A suggestion, with a new TA coming in. And I often wonder, we sometimes, you email, and Zara did when you guys, I think you're pretty communicative through the email process. Is it possible, this is my suggestion, that we can, when we do talk to TA, that we get this packet a few days early
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I know
Yes.
everyone's squishing, but it would be nice to review these things.
Yeah.
Before I come in and go, I'm reading here and listening here and doing those sort of things. And, you know, and then we know what's on the agenda and we say, hey, Liz, what's this?
Well, I do get out the agenda by Friday.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree.
And it is hard to get it sooner than that because there's always things coming in, right? And I try to get it in by the deadline, but yes, I know.
And
And
not just the
yeah.
agenda, the other items that go along with this,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? If we could, and we can do this, sit down with the new TA and discuss these
Yes.
things. So and I think that might be help to keep that communication open as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. That is fully like, I mean, my vision is that, you know, our minutes have all these attachments, right?
Yes.
And everything with them, so that anyone who's like reading the minutes, they're like, oh, they're referring to this invoice or they're this or that. Yes. Sorry.
I'd like to add maybe to our agendas, action items at the very end so that we can review what we talked about and who's responsible for what at each meeting. Because I see you write down a lot of things and then call this, you have to call this person, you have to call, and we want to alleviate that. You have a full-time job. You shouldn't have to do all that stuff. I also do want to say that this has been such a hard year for the select board. We have a great board. You know, we're all very respectful of each other. We all communicate one-on-one, you know, figure out ways to get our ideas across. And I, you know, it's been a rough year, but I think we can move forward and I have high hopes for this TA that will help us, in the rocky waves ahead.
Yes. Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, thank you, Stacy, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Feedback is a gift.
Yeah, thank you,
It's-
Stacy.
It's not always a very tasteful gift, but it's important.
No, and it truly does help me. Like, I appreciate that kind of feedback and I do learn from it. And I definitely, you know, I feel like I've already started because I knew this, you know, was coming. You know, even with this TA.
We've noticed and.
I'm afraid to like do anything at this point. I'm like, oh no, I gotta wait for the select board. So
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's.
It's noticed, there's been some sidebar conversations and it's appreciated because we're all on the
Good.
same page about.
We feel heard.
We feel heard and we feel like we're acting as a body. And that's really hard. Having like the five-headed hydra hiring someone is just a challenge.
Right. And it's a challenge when we only meet twice a month, right? I mean, it's like, there's a lot of things, but thank you. I do appreciate that. Matt, yes.
I just wanted to quickly comment more generally, not directed at anyone. But I to Larry's ask of getting the stuff earlier, I think me as a resident of the town, I love when the select board is able to warn discussion of something and then have action on the following meeting. I love that cadence. I think that's a good cadence for the select board to have. And as much as you guys can do that, I know it's been an incredibly difficult year. I'm hoping with the TA and everyone else sort of everything kind of getting hopefully back to normal, there can be just more of a measured pace for you guys. Because as a resident, being able to understand something on one meeting and then come to with an opinion the next one is a really nice cadence.
Thank you, Matt.
Having plunges sincere.
Sorry.
Okay, okay, so now we're almost on time. We're not too far behind. So this, the South Bear Swamp Culvert and 5-year plan discussed action possible. I think, so there's really not a lot of information in this line item, but there are 2 culverts, that are in question. One is, the culvert that is right before the Lunds and the Bridenstines, you know, that little stream, there's this little culvert there. And then when you go up that little hill and the Bridenstines are on the left and the Lunds are on the right, and then you keep going down the road, there's the giant culvert, right? And so I think we then have this 5-year culvert plan, right? And that is about like driveway culverts and other culverts in town that need replacing, right?
Correct.
And so
Every culvert that is rated closed, critical, urgent, and poor.
Wait, is that the spreadsheet?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, every culvert in town is on there?
No, just the ones that are closed, urgent, critical, and poor.
Okay,
There's like 8 different ways that you can grade a culvert, and those 4 are bad enough that
Okay.
it needs to be fixed.
do you know what percentage of culverts those are in town?
So it's a little under 30 per year, so it's like a little under 140 culverts that we need to fix out in town. And what we did was we had worked with,
Hey,
go ahead.
Can you just do a little bit like who's the we
Yep,
and this and
That's, I'm
just
trying to do it back.
tiny backstory about
So the road committee had worked with the planning commission 2 years ago to win a hazard mitigation planning grant through Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. So we're working with Keith Cubbin. And what they did first was they sent out people to look at every single culvert in town and rate them and measure them to determine how good to bad they are.
Were those the culvert crawlers?
No, the culvert crawlers are something different.
Okay.
Then Keith from Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission priced out all of the culverts that we would be needing. So we know what kind of budget we're working with. And then what he did was he put it based on use of the road, like how many people are gonna be using the road. And other work that needs to be done there. He put together a 5-year plan. So what this is in front of you, color coded, year 1 is yellow, year 2 is green, year 3 is blue. Year 4 is orange. And year 5 is pink. Is that what it shows on yours? I might have missed mine. Yep. The culverts for South Bear, the one, the smaller one that does access the homes, is actually on the plan for year 5.
Okay.
Year 1 starts next year.
Year 1 starts in calendar year 2027.
Correct, because what we're doing is we've got the pricing of the culverts and
Okay,
Eric has started purchasing some.
okay.
What is the big one on South Bear Swamp, that one that's done? Is that on that list or no?
No, because there's no homes past it.
So, I think that culvert is definitely, in question,
Are we talking the one further?
the further one.
Yeah.
But, because and that's the one where you said you were gonna put,
Yeah, so we've put together a little action plan for that. So what we've decided to do, based on some concerns from local residents, is installing 2 Jersey barriers on both sides of that culvert, one on the inlet, one on the outlet. Those Jersey barriers are the long concrete structures that divide the interstate. They're structural, they're really large. Those will get installed and recessed ever so slightly at that culvert crossing to a wide enough, to a width that's adequate to pass vehicles safely. It'll help with erosion of the road. And it'll also some structural support from kind of the deterioration. As we see, we had seen it in our walk that cars are getting by there, but yeah, there's some concerns of safety, sure. I did have Eric go there yesterday morning to take some pictures. I unfortunately wasn't able to meet with him. His, F-250 is able to pass through there without a problem, but we're gonna go an extra step to bolster the sides and kind of shore things up.
is that culvert, the actual metal round thing, is that what kind of shape is that in?
Based on the pictures that I saw and kind of what we saw, that'll be due for replacement at some point. The unfortunate part is it is on a class 4 road that does not directly lead to a home as a dead end. It's a through portion of road. And unfortunately, because of its location, it's within a wetlands. It's a large enough culvert that will need a hydraulic study, and more than likely it would be more multi-jurisdictional in the amount of permitting that we would need to get for that. And additionally, the town would not be able to do that, so we would have to hire that out. So it'd be a pretty lengthy and involved process to change that culvert
Couple
out.
$100,000.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that, you're between 150 to 250. Yeah, there really all depends on what the hydraulic study shows.
I see.
Yeah, based on the watershed above it. So and unfortunately, I don't mean to downplay the culvert, but it is on a class 4 through road, so as far as a priority versus our other projects on class 2, class 3, even dead end roads.
Yeah.
If I put that on matrix, like that is not a top priority in my opinion.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because
How much time does the Jersey barriers give us? I mean, does that help prevent, we can push this out further? or-
Yeah, that could be an ongoing maintenance item. So that's not like the good thing is it bridges over the culvert itself. So it actually spans way more than just the culvert. So it's even more, it's stronger than just adding head wall stones. It's spanning, of course, I think Jersey barriers between 8, 9, 10 feet, something like that. So, and those can be maintained, moved, reset as Barrick saw fit or was needed.
I mean, it sort of leads me to, so as part of a class 4 policy, our current policy that we have, one of the things that we say we do is maintain culverts, right? That's like the bare minimum that you're doing on a class 4 road. And so.
Maintain conveyance of stormwater
Yeah,
Okay.
is
Yeah.
the way that it's written.
Okay, so I think then, to me, this is an opportunity for us to explore potentially turning that section into a trail. So not giving it up entirely and throwing it up to the landowners, but because people use it as a trail, but for the most part, people use it for biking or walking because we know that driving on that is dicey, right? And there are people who sometimes do go through, but then you get caught on those big rocks and, and it's not, it. Even worse is what they're trying to do is go to Hunger Mountain, right? And when they get to that next one, that's even worse, right? That class 4. Is that even a class 4? Does someone remember?
Yeah.
Between where the O'Briens used to live, I don't know who lives there now. That section.
Oh, yeah.
All the way. Is that still a
I
class
don't
4?
remember that. I don't.
Because that is like, nobody can drive through
Yeah.
that, right? And so, this may be something that we take on as a select board goal is, reconsidering that section of Bear Swamp as downgrading it to a trail. That requires
After a
public
new
hearing
class
and all
4
that kind of
policy.
stuff. What?
After a new
Yeah,
class 4.
Yeah,
policy.
it's just something, because then you're not responsible for
Right.
the culvert anymore. And this is an extremely expensive culvert, right? And that people aren't using that road because most of that road isn't really usable anyway.
Right.
So, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, so I don't think there's really anything except for you're saying that culvert that is closest to the Bridenstine, that the one that they drive over is for year 5.
it is for year 5. However, Eric was gonna take a look at it. And again, I didn't get what he had.
Yeah, that would be, the question I had that came to me was about the further culvert.
Okay, so Eric had put up safety signs on the other culvert and he is gonna do.
The big culvert.
No, nobody's doing anything with the big culvert because the big culvert doesn't need anything done with it other than Jersey mirrors. The culvert that the person on the class 4 road was concerned about and wanted us to bring up tonight is on year 5. However, Eric is going to take a look at it again and see if it's something that, sometimes the fire department comes and just blasts out all the dirt and stuff in a culvert and makes the water flow more properly.
But
So
what are the safety signs that we're just talking about?
that's on that smaller.
Oh, it's on that smaller culvert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the question later. Yes. I'm sorry, could you just state your name for the record?
I'm Diane Chapin and I live on South Jersey.
Oh, thank you.
Hi,
Thanks for
Diane.
coming.
Nice to meet you.
I have a question. You're talking about possibly throwing the road up for a trail. What does that involve?
So we're referring to not the place where the houses are, so from
The point, was it 0.6?
Yeah, the 0.6.
Something like that.
So we've done this before, but my recollection is you have a public hearing, like you send out letters to landowners, you have a public hearing, you hear from the public. And then the select board makes a decision based on the public input of whether or not they think that section should be turned into a trail. The trail is still owned by a town. It also allows us, I believe, to upgrade it again, right? So like if, let's say, someone decided that they were, had wanted to build, a bunch of houses there or something and approached us and said, we really would like to turn this trail into a class 3 road. That could happen because it's still owned by the town. I'm looking at our attorney but I know that if we threw it up, then that's just the homeowners, right? And there's no more. Throwing it up means the town no longer owns it at all.
Joanne Flanagan did on part of the other old road.
Yeah, like we threw up back in, when I was on the board, we threw up like five roads, primarily they were, and I'll give an example.
But do they ever reopen? Do you ever vote to reopen them once you've made them trigger?
We've never had it that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way.
that's never happened.
Well, and it should be emphasized, Liz is saying that could be discussed as a candidate for that. It's not, this is not part of it.
Yeah, we're not, yeah,
This is not an active discussion.
this is not, yeah, this is way
The
down.
town or just the homeowner to be notified if you guys have a meeting on it?
Oh, yeah.
The entire town.
It'd be an exhausting.
Budding landowners, yeah, if there's a long process for it, and I'm sure it will have a very lively conversation. And our job is to listen to the townspeople, right? The
Another
townspeople like,
comment is a lot of people keep saying, and I've seen it on Front Porch Forum, it says not a through road. I beg to differ with that. You lived where I did, and we counted the cars every day. Even in the wintertime, because a neighbor has plowed it, so he can get through quicker
Oh,
to his
interesting.
house.
yeah.
Everybody uses it, the town, FedEx, UPS,
And they go through the whole thing.
yes,
Yeah,
day in and day out.
yeah, that's interesting. You know, and were you here for our attempt to turn it into a class 3? Yeah, so, you know, that seemed to really, no one seemed to really want it to be a class 3, you know, which would then, you know, make it an official, you know, throughway for people and egress, right, for if emergencies, that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, I mean, and that would be the kind of thing, if we were to consider that and everyone in town said, no, people use it all the time, we want it to be a class 4, that would just be the understanding that, you know, we would still need to spend $250,000 to upgrade this culvert because that's our requirement for the.
In 2031, according to your 5-year plan.
No, that's not even on our 5-year plan
That's not
because
even-
there's no homes past that large one.
Oh, I thought you said the last page where it was.
The last, it's the other.
It'd be right below your hill, directly
that
below
was
your
it.
secondary.
That was washing out on the
That's
right
correct.
side.
Yes,
Yeah.
it'd be that.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarification.
And yeah, so we have thrown up roads in the past. Generally, they were ones that had no houses, or one house only leading. And so basically we were like essentially plowing someone's driveway for free, even though it was a, you know, class,
Lucky them.
it was a class 3, right?
Well, and they were a
so-
majority landowner. They owned
Right.
both sides. It was just an old
Right.
dead end road that led to one home.
Right, so we threw those up. One, we didn't, which, and we chose not to because, even though there was only one home on it, there was a giant culvert. And we didn't feel that was right for that homeowner who had bought the property, knowing that driveway was, or that road, that was Dolan.
Dolan.
Not Dolan, Ryan, yeah, a Warren Road. There's a culvert the size of, you know, we can all fit in it, right? And that we felt couldn't be a responsibility of a homeowner. So that maintained as a class 4. So we still are responsible for that culvert. Yes.
I also want to say that it did come up when we were discussing the possibility of turning it into a class 3, that some people had said that they wanted barriers to keep the Jeeps from going by. And so if that is something that the residents of the road all determine that they want, that's something we could discuss too.
No.
So that's not something you want.
I
Okay,
never heard that discussion, so.
that it came up. So again, it's something you could request us to talk about and we could, as we own the road, we could close it right off to traffic, right? If that's what you wanted.
Before you move
Yeah.
on, we talked about, there's roads that Eric started to buy culverts and all. Is this money that's coming out of the budget? Should the budget be planning for future monies?
The budget
or is
committee
that-
should probably be working with Eric because we have this whole list and it's as.
You should reach out to Eric.
Yeah, or maybe it'll be a road committee.
Yeah,
Committee
a bigger,
joint.
broader, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Because a lot of it include, and some background about 5-year plan for culverts was Eric and Zara and I have had very informal discussions about, well, maybe we need to think about how we execute this plan. And then we're like, okay, we would bring in the road committee on that. So really, it's more just, since this is very fresh off the press, we're in the background saying, okay, maybe we need to come up with 3 or 4 ways of how we execute this. Like, do we think about maybe hiring out and stuff like that? So again,
Adding
it's,
staff.
yeah, adding staff, like we've just kind of thrown some things out
So
there
we're gonna
that.
discuss
will-
that at the road committee on
Correct.
Thursday to
Yep.
get that started. But yeah, this
The
is,
budget committee would be interested in
Yeah.
numbers.
yeah, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
And I can send, I mean, I can send you this that Keith sent to us, that you can start adding things up if you want to on your own. Absolutely, that's easy enough. Yeah.
Okay, alrighty, so now we're on to, we have our, the town's attorney, Rob Halpert here. He graciously pulled together, a report and a report of findings for the special hearing that we had on June 23rd in 2026. Does it make sense to read it aloud, Rob?
You don't have to.
Okay,
If you'd
we don't
like
have
to.
to. Okay,
If you'd like, I'll read it aloud if you want.
it might be a good idea to read it aloud. It might take a little time, but I think it's a good idea to read it aloud.
Okay.
So let me just
Yeah,
quickly
you
give
set it
a
up.
little set the stage. This was we had a public hearing on June 23rd that was initiated by the select board. So this was not initiated by the 5% of signatures. This was done on the same day as the second town meeting, May 9th. The select board had a meeting and voted to hold a public hearing to consider upgrading the 0.3 section of the class 4 section of South Bear Swamp Road. Basically from the top of the hill to the Lund/Bridenstine end, that's 0.3. And the board met on June 23rd for a public hearing. They met on site and did another walkthrough. Is that correct? I wasn't there.
Yes, we
Okay,
did.
we did, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And then a meeting was held. At the end of that meeting, there was actually no decision made.
Special hearing.
At the end of the special hearing, there was no decision made by the board, but it was recommended that we could, that we still do a report that is due by August 22nd.
I would say there was no motion made,
Right.
no decision made.
Well, there was no motion made, but Rob can kind of talk a little bit about that, and because there was no real requirement to have a motion, because basically at the public hearing, we could have met later to have a discussion, but we kind of decided there.
Yeah, there was nothing improper about making the motion. It's just the usual practice is to take in all the evidence at the hearing and then come back at a later date within that 60 days, which we're doing tonight. Revisit the issue and cut a decision.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's clear under the law that when you do reclassify, you do have to have a written report in order. It's less than clear to me, and there may be people brighter than me that the language is clear in the statute. But the statute is a little bit unclear as to whether a written report in order like this is required when we don't end up reclassifying. And that seemed to be the way that things were going at the end of the hearing, as demonstrated by the fact that when Zara solicited a motion, nobody would make a motion to reclassify. So this proposed findings in order is what would definitely be required when you do reclassify. I'm recommending that we do it tonight. So it does no harm to have a written order,
Okay.
even though we're not reclassifying. And I also want to make it clear that if any board members between June 23rd now have thought about this and have a different view of the proceedings than they did on June 23rd, you have the absolute right to have that view and to discuss that tonight and to vote accordingly any way you want. And if there's anything in this proposed decision, which, as we all know, I've circulated drafts of this and we've gone back and forth on it. But again, if there's anything
part of our discussions or what you thought about, whether in the shower this morning or when you hit the pillow last night. If you have any second thoughts about anything that's in here, we do have until Friday. I can redraft till the cows come home and we can get this to a place where at least the majority of the select board is happy with the decision. And if we're all happy with this tonight, you're free to sign it. The procedure is once it's signed, it goes to Bridget, and she'll record that. You have a highway book, I assume, in the town records. It should be recorded in the town records. Okay, by Friday.
Okay.
All right. With that, I'll read this as quickly as possible while still being able to make sense, which is unusual for me, so bear with me. So it's Town of Middlesex report and order on a request for reclassification of a portion of South Bear Swamp Road, which is Town Highway 14, if you're keeping score at home. On June 23rd of 2026, the Town of Middlesex Select Board convened a site visit and hearing concerning the reclassification of a 0.3 mile more or less section of South Bear Swamp Road from Class 4 to Class 3 status. The Select Board initiated these proceedings on its own motion, as Liz just mentioned, pursuant to 19 Vermont Statute, Section 708. The Select Board members participating in the hearing were Elizabeth Scharf, who appeared remotely from her Tuscany villa or wherever she was, while we all sweated.
At 2 a.m.
That's not in the decision, by the way. Zara Vincent, Vice Chair, who presided in the hearing, as Liz was remote. Paul Sermonera, Lawrence Rooney, who I think you were remote as well, Larry.
Yeah, I was present at the hearing, then I went remote.
Okay, good. And Stacy Scabbard. Public notice of the June 23rd site visit and hearing was provided by certified mail to all persons owning or interested in lands abutting the 0.3 mile section of road. We also forwarded written notice of the site visit and hearing to the Town Planning Commission. That's a statutory requirement. By publishing the notice of site visit and hearing with the Times Argus newspaper, and by posting the notice of site visit and hearing at the town clerk's office and on the town's website. Select Board hereby issues its findings, report, and order for recording with the town clerk. The findings, number one, based on requests from one or more residents of South Bear Swamp Road, a majority of the Select Board at a duly warned special hearing held on May 9th, 2026, voted to initiate statutory reclassification proceedings for the following portion of South Bear Swamp Road. And we have to have a little bit of a legal definition. An approximate 0.3 mile more or less section of South Bear Swamp Road, Town Highway 14, from the termination of the Class 3 section of the highway to the last two residential driveways, the Klein and Lund residences located on that section of the highway. Number two, on June 23rd, 2026, the Select Board convened a site visit to examine the highway and thereafter convened a public hearing to consider the question of whether the public good, necessity, and convenience of the inhabitants of the town require the highway section to be reclassified from Class 4 to Class 3. Number three, at the outset of the hearing, the Select Board advised that certain irregularities in the manner of providing public notice of the site visit and hearing had occurred. Notably, the publication of the public notice in the Times Argus was delayed and did not appear in the newspaper until after the deadline of 10 days preceding the hearing. Upon hearing no objection to the notice irregularities, the Select Board determined to move forward with the hearing. Number four, the 0.3 mile section of South Bear Swamp Road is currently a Class 4 highway, and there are 5 full-time residences along this section of the road. As a Class 4 highway and in accordance with the town's current Class 4 highway policy, the town does not perform routine maintenance or winter plowing of this section of the road or the remaining Class 4 section of Town Highway 14. Number 5, based on testimony from 3 residents who reside on the 0.3 mile section of the road, portions of this road are in poor condition due to a lack of regular maintenance and plowing. Emergency and service vehicles have not always been able to travel along the road to provide necessary services to the residents, and vehicular, access to and from the resident's home is often challenging. The advantages of upgrade of the road and reclassification include emergency service vehicle access would be improved. 2/3 of the upgrade costs could potentially be covered by a town resident, resulting in no cost for the upgrade to the town. The upgrade would provide additional and improved access to town trails. Safety, ease of travel, and convenience of the residents would be enhanced. And residents of this portion of South Bear Swamp Road would enjoy the same privileges and benefits as other tax-paying residents of the town. Number 6, other town residents emphasize disadvantages of reclassification based primarily on financial concerns. Granting the reclassification would negatively affect the town's already stressed highway budget. We've been talking about that a little tonight. And could set in motion similar requests for reclassification of other Class 4 roads, placing an undue burden on town finances such that the town would not be able to financially sustain these upgrades and ongoing maintenance expenses. Number 7, evidence also established that in considering reclassification requests involving proposed road upgrades, the select board should consider adverse threats to wildlife and other environmental harm. Number 8, the select board takes administrative / official notice of the provisions of the town's highway ordinance adopted in May 2003 and the town's Class 4 roads and trails policy adopted in March 2003 and subsequently revised in June 2016 and November 2017. With respect to highway reclassification upgrade requests, the ordinance and policy's respective provisions and guidelines are internally inconsistent and set forth standards and guidelines that may not be in harmony with Vermont statutory reclassification standards and requirements. Based on these concerns, the select board has determined the need to review the policy and ordinance to ensure that the provisions are consistent with the provisions and requirements of current Vermont highway statutes, that the provisions of the ordinance and policy are not in conflict with each other, and that both the policy and ordinance provide clear and consistent standards and guidance to aid applicants, petitioners, and decision-making in highway reclassification proceedings. The select board initiated this review effort prior to the June 23rd, 2026 hearing, but the process is in its initial stages and is not yet complete. Number 9, the town's planning commission recommends that the select board defer any highway reclassification decisions until the select board revisits the town's Class 4 maintenance and reclassification policies to ensure that decisions are sound and based on consistent and fair policies and standards. Number 10, the evidence establishes that a town resident has offered to fund variously up to 1/3 or 2/3 of the costs required to upgrade the road's Class 3 standards. However, no formal commitment or binding agreement on cost sharing is in place, leaving the town at risk of absorbing the entirety of the upgrade costs. It is also unclear whether Vermont statutes would allow the select board to condition any reclassification order on obtaining reimbursement or payment of upgrade costs from one or more residents of the road in cases where no statutory petition is filed and the select board is proceeding on its own motions. Number 11, last finding. At the conclusion of the hearing, the vice chair asked whether any select board member would present a motion for reclassification of the 0.3 mile section of South Bear Swamp Road. No motion was offered. And then there's a short section called report conclusion. The evidence presented at the hearing with particular regard to findings 6 through 10 herein, which I've just read, does not establish that the public good, necessity, and convenience of the inhabitants of the town require reclassification of the 0.3 mile section of South Bear Swamp Road. And then the last section is a one sentence order. It states as follows: the Middlesex Select Board declines to reclassify a 0.3 mile more or less section of South Bear Swamp Road, Town Highway 14, not 24, sorry. This section of the highway shall remain class 4. And then we have signature lines for this left one. That's the report.
Okay. Are there comments from anyone on the board? Do people feel like this, is there anyone, as Rob, asked, is there anyone who has changed their mind or thinks differently or would like us to revisit, the findings in here, or consider something else?
No.
No.
No. Okay, so is there a motion to adopt, the, Town of Middlesex report in order on request for reclassification of a portion of South Bear Swamp Road, Town Highway 14? Is there a motion to approve this report in order?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
And I'll second.
And Paul seconds. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. So, we all need to sign this now. And then, Bridget, if you don't, I wouldn't know what to do because I've never done this before. So I would, reach out to.
Is Cheryl gonna be-
to some of how this gets recorded, because it's extremely important that this is done by,
Friday.
the 22nd.
Right.
On Friday, yeah. And so, I will just put a reminder to, contact Bridget, make sure it's confirmed.
Thank you, Rob.
No problem.
Okay, so we're a little behind schedule and I'm sorry for that. Yeah, thank you for
I
reading
should have
it.
read faster, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm glad you read it. Okay, so, we are, well, before we go, to consider the adjourning, don't forget to sign the orders. And is there any other correspondence that, came between board members and the public that we haven't discussed already tonight?
Liz, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
The form that you looked at in your packet, Cheryl does have that.
Oh, for the highway?
That all of you do have to sign.
Okay, so we need to make a motion then to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Well, let's call it the annual financial plan. for
The annual financial plan for town highways
and for the fiscal year 2027.
for the fiscal year 2027.
Okay,
Ending July 1, 2026 and ending
6/30/2027. And it is to explain how we are spending 1,227,076 and 95 cents.
They're more than a hand in the $6.
Okay, and it explains, it breaks out how much of that is going to, that's estimated,
construction.
well, yeah, I don't know what this
Wages,
town tax building
building.
is. Class 3, I know what that is, you get money.
Yeah.
So we're getting some income for the class 2 highways and the class 3 roads from probably the state or.
Yeah, it includes.
Yeah, and then
aid
town tax funds
Yep.
accounts for 1 million, almost 1,100,000, and the rest comes from the highway grants.
Basically, the
Um,
income and the expenses match.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it breaks it down into winter maintenance, non-winter maintenance, general construction, wages, taxes, benefits, training, and building and equipment costs. So Zara made that motion. Is there a second?
I will second as well.
Okay, all those in favor of passing the annual financial plan for fiscal year 27 for the town highways, say aye. Aye. Okay, so today's date is what? 8/18. Okay, so please sign that as well. And it looks like Eric needs to sign the bottom. Okay. Any other correspondence that comes before the board members and the public? Or any other matters that come before the board? Okay, so our next line item and is to consider adjourning our regular select board meeting and moving into
the possible executive session, there was my amended agenda, which I would like to cover first. Which was to go through
The appointment or employment. right?
no,
Pending or probable civil litigation.
no, where's that?
You're out of ideas.
No, where's my little legal thing that I had? That. It was my little legal thing. It was pursuant to one VSA section 3133, which is the appointment or employment of evaluation of a public officer or employee. And then it was also following that executive session to move into possible executive session to discuss pending litigation matters, one VSA section 3131E, pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party. So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting and move into executive session for these two executive session?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
With respect to the potential hiring of a public employee, if a decision wants to be made tonight to hire that employee, that decision has to be made in public. It could be discussed in executive session, pros and cons, evaluations, stuff like that.
But the person hasn't accepted the job.
Okay,
So I didn't want to say that.
so then that sounds to me like we're not in a position to hire tonight.
No, we're not in a position to hire.
But we did want to discuss like
There's
compensation.
That's fine, that can all be done.
That's all we're doing.
Yes, that's what this is about, is compensation.
So I was just gonna say that whenever you come out of executive session and consider taking some kind of action.
Yeah.
As a result of that, you shouldn't adjourn the hearing, the meeting. You should simply go into executive. You don't have to adjourn.
Okay,
You don't want to end
okay.
the meeting.
gotcha. And earlier when you weren't here, I mentioned that at a later warned meeting, we would have it on the agenda.
Perfect.
That we were making the announcement. In
Right.
fact, it was on tonight's agenda, but we passed over it.
Right.
So, so that's the
Thanks.
plan, is at the next meeting. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn the regular select board meeting?
To just move into executive session, I'll make that.
Yeah, but we still need to adjourn, don't we?
No,
Oh, we don't? Okay, sorry.
you'll adjourn the select board meeting when you come out of executive session.
Okay,
This is
sorry.
part of the
I
meeting.
thought that was only if we were making.
Uh.
But it's fine, doesn't matter. Okay, all right, so is there a motion? Zara moves.
I'll second.
Okay, Larry seconds. Okay, so that means everybody here,
Say aye.
Oh, aye, all those in favor say aye. Aye.